All right, so like I said, we're going to talk about employee management today. The first thing we'll start with is quick hire. This is the easiest way to get new employees in the system. So if you have a new employee, you have your new employee paperwork in hand. We do have new hire paperwork on our website under the resources tab. W-4, new employee setup paperwork, I-9s, all those fun things are on there. Once you've gathered all that paperwork, you can come into quick hire and enter the employee's information. So in this situation, we only have one company, so that's what we'll use. They're obviously active in status. Hire date becomes important for benefits enrollments, retirements, eligibilities, things like that. So it's important to try to get as accurate of a hire date as you can. I'm going to add this guy after the fact, so we'll go ahead and just put him he started last Wednesday, for example. If you had an adjusted service date, you may want to keep track of that. So for example, if you have an employee that leaves and comes back, you may want to put that they've been working with you since 1990, but they left, and now they've come back in 2021, and this is their new hire date. The system will automatically generate a employee ID for you, but if you want to put a custom employee ID, feel free to do that. The employment category here is full, part-time. We can customize this field for you, so if you had seasonal or per diem or any different types of employment categories you wanted to keep track of, we can add those in here as well. And again, these employment categories often come in handy for benefits tracking, retirement tracking, those types of things. So certainly something to keep in mind. Time clock ID, if you are using timekeeping and you're using a time clock, you may need to put a time clock ID. Generally, we recommend that would be the last 4 digits of their social, but it can be anything you want. Could be the employee number if they wanted. And that would allow them to clock in and clock out via a clock. Scrolling down, we do have our general information, basic employee information here. So I'm just going to make up a social and we'll add an employee. You can put a preferred name, for example, if you want, middle name or middle initial. So we have John Johnson. If you wanted to enable employee self-service through My HR Stuff, you would want to put their email in here. We always recommend you collect their email anyway. I'm going to use my dummy email that I have created, so we may be able to do that. Okay, so because this is already on another employee, it's basically saying that this account will be linked to the existing account. So if you have an employee that may work even for another company that works with us, if you put their email in and you enable self-service, they will have access to both companies within a single login. So there's no need for them to create a separate login, which is really nice. So under marital status, again, this is not a required field, but you certainly may want to keep track of it. Again, for benefits, those types of things becomes important. Address, we'll just put an address in here. Zip code. When I fill in the zip code, it automatically puts in my city and state, which is very nice. We do not have any of the phones or birth date or gender required, but we can make those required if you want them to be required fields. Again, those become important for retirement, for benefits. Those are important information to have. So under salary, we have our biweekly pay group set up. You can choose them to be hourly, salary, 1099, commission, so forth. I'm going to just make this an hourly employee. If we come down to hourly rate, put an hourly rate in there. When I tab out, it automatically fills in the annual salary, so that gives you an idea. If you wanted, for example, to just put an annual salary in here and you tab in, it will update the hourly rate as well. So you can tab in between any of these 3 fields and it'll update the rest of the field. So this is really nice. Again, for a salaried employee, if you're looking for, a specific annual rate, it'll automatically calculate their per pay salary for you. So we're going to leave this guy's hourly. If we had any alternate rates in here, so if you have different job classes or anything like that, we can create alternate pay rates in here. So this person may do some cleaning on the weekends, for example, and he gets $25 an hour at that rate. That is an option, not something you have to use, but it's available for you. I'm going to scroll back up to the top here and look, coming back to the right-hand column, we'll look at different departments and locations and things like that. These we certainly can set up for you if you want. You can use all or any different type of category you want. These are pretty generic. but you could set up different classes of employees, any type of categorization you want to set up for your organizations, we can pretty much create to keep that nice and clean for reporting. If you're using workers' comp, you want to make sure you check the workers' comp code. That becomes important to make sure that your workers' comp is updated appropriately with your carrier and you're billed correctly. Coming down to tax location. So most of our clients only have one state that they work in or one tax location. So you'll only see one location and this will automatically fill in. If you're in if you have multiple different states or tax jurisdictions that you work in, you may have more than one tax location, but generally most of our clients only have one. So you'll see that here. And again, tax school districts and reciprocities don't apply to most of our clients, so you can ignore that. Federal filing status. So if you have the employees W-4s in front of you, you can fill that out. I do want to just take a pause here. I want to talk about the new W-4. There's a ton of confusion about the new W-4. I have it open right here. The new W-4 is pretty much designed to be easier. And I really say easier in quotes because it has created a ton of confusion. When the most recent tax bill passed, I don't know, 2018, 2019, they decided they were going to change the W-4 and make it easier for folks. It's really designed to fill in the top part only. Single or married filing separately, married filing jointly, or a qualified widower, or a head of household. Everything below, 98% of employees will not need to complete. So you really have to just choose one of these checkboxes and you're done. That's how most of this works. And this terminology is similar in isolved, and we'll see that in just a second. These bottom sections really only need to be completed if an employee works multiple jobs. It tries to help them do this by going to this W-4 estimator, this irs.gov/W4 app. I think it only creates more confusion, to be perfectly honest with you. So again, even if you have multiple jobs, most of the time these stick in here. The dependents, so they try to estimate the child tax care credit, this $2,000 credit. So it tries to exempt you from a certain amount. If you want to claim your dependents, this is an option. It will exempt you from the child care tax credit to reduce your withholdings. But again, it's more confusing for most lay people than it is helpful. So, honestly, it's not like it used to be. It's not the number of dependents is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It basically says take the number of children times 2,000. It's definitely confusing. And again, most people don't need to worry about it because the tax tables adjust based on your single or married status kind of thing. And then if there's other extra withholdings, things like that you want to have, you can go to option 4. So if you wanted to claim single and then have an extra $50 a week taken out, you could do that as well. So the new W-4, like I said, really designed first third of the page only, and that's all that's needed. Everything below is really only for specialized circumstances. We're not seeing a lot of people using it. We're not having a lot of issues with people not using it. So I think people had just kind of gotten used to the last one, and now we've changed it and we've made it again, quote unquote, easier. So that's the W-4, and you'll see the terminology within the quick hire wizard here, quick hire screen to relate with that. Before I put this income tax information in here, isolved is built to accept the old W-4 and the new W-4. This has caused even more confusion because the terminology is very similar. So you'll see right now, I'm going to just use the terminology single or married filing separately, which is exactly what's on the W-4. Gives me the ability to fill in sections 2, 3, 4 from that W-4 form. Generally, you don't have to worry about that. If I went back to just single, which is the old W-4, now it switches everything up. Tells me to go to exemptions. We've had a couple of clients who have said, I'm single with 4,000 exemptions, which ends up taking 0 tax out. So you want to keep a close eye on this. If you're using the new W-4, which you should be, you want to make sure you use that terminology the same: head of household, married filing jointly, or single or married filing separately. I wish that isolved would put married -old W-4, single -old W-4, something like that. They haven't taken my suggestion as of yet. But for that, we're just going to leave this as single. Again, 98% of employees are going to be covered under that. So I'm not going to fill in dependents, other income, so forth, because I think it only causes more confusion. Coming down to our state income tax, this complicates matters even more because the state W-4 is now different than the federal W-4. So they're still using single and married, and they're still using exemptions. So now it's going to ask you, how many kids do you have? How many dependents do you have? How many exemptions do you have? So that this is a little different than what the federal one is. So because this company I'm working has California, it's also going to be California on here, but I'm going to skip that. Fortunately, again, 99% of the clients that we have do not have any tax exemption, city tax available or local taxes, which is very nice. You don't have to worry about that. The tax exemptions box down here. Unless you know what you're doing, please do not touch it. That will be my warning. This is designed for, think of J1 visa employees, H2B visa employees. That is where these live. That is our ability to come in here and say a J1 is not subject to this tax and so forth. Again, 99.9% of our clients do not need to ever use this because their employees are all eligible for all taxes. These tax exemptions can cause major problems. So again, unless you know what you're doing, please don't touch the tax exemption section. At the bottom, we have direct deposits, and we can come in here and add a direct deposit. We're going to choose active. We choose an account type of checking. We can create as many direct deposit entries as we want. I think the highest I've seen so far is about 12. I'm not sure what that person is doing with all of those direct deposits, but we can do it. We can add as many as you want. So if I wanted to create, if I wanted to have two, I'm going to put the first direct deposit I want. That's my first priority. I want this to happen every pay. So you can also adjust this. If you wanted a direct deposit to only happen on the first of the month to pay your, ex-wife or whatever you wanted to do, you could do that. I'm going to leave this as every pay. In this situation, I want to have $50 a week going to this checking account. You could also do a percentage if you wanted. And we'll just put an account number in here and put that. And this is my fund, I guess. And then if I want to add the next one, I can add new. And we're going to go into active on this as well. This is going to be a checking account. Our sequence, we could do 1, 2, can add another one if we want to do 2, can do a remaining net. That's what we want. So I want, after this $50 is taken out, I want all my check to go in. Again, every pay. And we don't have to put an amount or percent in because we have the remaining net going in. Put an account in there, and this will be my bills account. You don't have to put a description in, but it's sometimes nice. So we've gone through and we've added our new employee. We've got everything in here. If you want to double check, you can kind of scroll back up, but I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Sometimes we'll get red errors if something happened, but we didn't. We got a save complete. So that means we did a good job. We've got our new employees in here. That's the basics of adding an employee. Pretty straightforward. Lots of information, obviously, we have to gather. We do have the ability to do new hire onboarding, where the employee can basically fill most of this out themselves. If that's something you want to learn more about, that will be one of the trainings a little later in the year as well. So certainly keep that in mind. And that's a really nice thing as well. So now let's talk about managing and editing employees. So in the navigation here, we're going to go to just the general tab. And this is a little weird error when you click out of the quick hire screen. If you haven't saved it, it says, are you sure you want to leave? Yes, we want to leave. So we're going to go to our general screen, and on the general screen, we can edit all of the information that we basically just had on the basic information. So name, address, hire date. The hire date is something you want to be careful of, and we're going to get to a different screen in just a second that shows that. But this is all basic information for the employee that you can edit. Scrolling down under the employee maintenance section, we may want to go to employment. This again becomes important if you change someone from full-time to part-time. And again, if you're using benefits in any way, or you have ACA considerations to think about, you definitely want to make sure that your employment is accurate and is in here. So if you change someone to part-time, you probably want to add a new date in here. I'm going to change them to part-time effective March 16th. So that way we have a history, because if they were eligible at one point for ACA, for example, but weren't at a different point, you want to make sure that that's tracked in here. This employment status history screen does just show that history of everything that we put in here. Scrolling down, we can keep track of organizations in here. So remember, we had our divisions and our departments. So this is where you would choose what those go in. So this guy moved to Department 20, we could do that and hit save. We can go to our labor if we had any specific labor categories. This one does not. The other thing we can do is we can distribute our wages among different locations or among different departments. So locations is important, again, if people have multiple states, but that doesn't happen often. But if you want to distribute someone's labor consistently, every payroll in a specific percent, we can do that under percent distribution. So I'm just going to hit edit, and I want 25% to go to Department 40. I'm going to hit add new, and I want 30% to go to Department 50. And I'm going to hit save. And then the remaining 45% goes to Department 20. So within our distribution, so every payroll, regardless of how the employee punches in, this is going to be their labor distribution split. So this happens often where someone allocates their time to different departments. That would be really nice. We also have the ability to allocate just a specific earning to different departments. So if someone, if you had different earnings for different departments, you could do that as well. There's all sorts of customization that is available in here. That's the general employee maintenance section. Again, most of the time, you're just going to be in the general screen. That's where it's going to happen the most. Let's go to employee pay. My guess is that this is where you're going to work most of the time. So from here, we can manage salary, we can manage those alternate pay rates, we can manage earnings, special earnings, deductions, garnishments, and direct deposits. So let's walk through those screens. If we go to salary, for example, we can come in here and add or edit the salary we just entered. It's important, you will probably want, you almost always want to add a new record when you change a salary. So is this a current change? Is this a future change? I'm going to say they had a probationary period. Effective June 1st, they're going to get a raise. And we will call this just a correction. We can create a note on that. And I can do a percent increase here. So if I wanted to say just a 3% increase and I tab through it, it's automatically going to do my 3% increase here. If I come in here again and just enter an hourly rate, and again, I tab through, all of those adjustments happen, including that percentage increase. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit save on this. Now I have my history. So I can see in March, he was earning $15.86. In June, he went to 18. So when someone comes back to you and says, well, I haven't gotten a raise in a long time, you now have the history to come back and say, oh, yes, you just got a raise 6 months ago. And oh, by the way, it was a nice one. So keeping that history by hitting add is important. It will allow you to hit edit. So if you hit edit and change this, if I wanted to come in and change this, I can do that, but it doesn't keep the history for me. So it's important, if you're going to really adjust somebody's rate, you're probably going to want to hit add new so you can keep track of that. Alternate pay rates, if we have alternate pay rates set up for employees, those show up here. Again, we can set up any number of alternate pay rates depending on your situation and how that works. Very simple. We can also set up default labor rates for employees. So if they work in a specific department, they get a specific rate and things like that. I always use the example of a restaurant, all servers make a certain amount. So if they clock into that department, they're going to get that rate kind of thing. That's a default labor rate. If we go to tax information, this is going to bring up that same screen. Again, same thing we had before, just like on the quick hire screen. And that will give you all this information. You can come in here and make these changes to whatever you want. So if this person got married all of a sudden, we'll come in and change it to married and hit save. Going down the menu here, we have earnings. We have, these are special earnings, things like stipends. If you give someone a cell phone stipend, if you give someone a health stipend, any recurring earnings that you want to be paid out every payroll, this is where those go. We do need to set them up for you first, and then you can configure them once they're set up. But if you have something that's consistently added on, they get we have one client that does a technology stipend because all their employees work from home. So they give them $50 on the first pay of the year, or excuse me, first pay of the month. And you can set that kind of thing up. So coming into deductions. So this is where all your deductions live. So you can come in here and change their deductions. If you go to 401k, if they want to now go from 2% to up to 6%, they can do that and make that change. They can also do a fixed amount if they want. If they had a different, they wanted to just do $100, they could do that as well. Some of these have a default schedule. That's when we set those up. We have the ability to come in here and make that schedule. So if they only wanted to contribute the first of the month, same kind of thing, they could do that. That's the same with all of these, dental, pre-tax, whatever you want to go right down the list. We can certainly put those in here if they had an HSA. All those are in here. We set those up just as they need to be done. So they all work the same. You just click on it, hit edit the amount, hit save, and next payroll, they're going to have a deduction. You can put start and end dates in here as well. So if you wanted a HSA to be in here for $50 a week, and then you want it to stop on 7/31, you can do that. And with the last payroll before July 31st, it's going to stop taking that HSA. So we can use those as well. The only challenge with those, I know we have a lot of clients that may want to put a future dated thing in. You can do that, but you can't add a new deduction for the future. So if your health insurance changes on January 1st, for example, and it's only November, but they already have a deduction, you can't go in and make that change in November. If you're using our benefits module, again, another training later in the year, you will be able to automatically update all the deductions as soon as the employee has chosen what benefit they want to enroll in. So you won't have to do any editing on deductions at that point, which is really nice. Garnishments, we really ask that you send garnishments to us, send them to your payroll processor. Garnishments get a little hairy, so we like to set those up, make sure that they're set up correctly. We want to make sure that the payee is set up correctly and so forth. So even though you have access to the garnishment screen, we do ask that you send those off to us so we can make sure they're set up correctly. So memo calculations is something you're probably not going to use very often, but these are things like matches on benefits, like 401k, health, medical, things like that. If you wanted to show up on an employee's check that you pay $100 a week for their health insurance, you can put that on there, and on their paycheck, they're going to see the company put $100 in their check. It's not in their check; they're not getting paid. You put $100 towards their health insurance, so they can see the total cost. Again, if you use the benefits module, these automatically get all pre-filled when the employee enrolls in benefits. But that's we don't see a lot of employers using these memo calculations, but they are available as well. And then coming back to direct deposit, again, just like it worked in the quick hire screen, we can add or edit these. If I wanted to get rid of this one, I'm going to just delete this one. And now all my remaining pay will go to this account, to my bills account. I don't get any more fund money, unfortunately, just have to pay bills. So that's a quick overview of basic employee management. I do want to show you really quickly, to navigate between employees in isolved, we've only been working with this one, John Johnson, right? If you want to, you can search for a specific employee here in the navigation up at the top. You can also click this list icon, which will bring you back to the list. From here, you can click on the next person, Liam, for example. If you wanted to go edit his direct deposit, you could do that. You can also use the arrows to scroll between the employees. So this is kind of the navigation of how to get between employees here. A lot of times we have people say, oh, I went back to the general screen, but I couldn't get to another employee because it sticks on the same employee that you've been working on. I've been working on Brooklyn. You got to come back to the list here to get to that other employee. That's how you navigate between employees. We'll go to Hazel. And then again, you can search. Let's see if we've got. So here's my John Johnson. I can search for that employee and bring him up. And this navigation works the same across isolved. So you'll see this type of navigation for employees everywhere. One of the next things I want to talk to you about is terminating employees. So it's really tempting to come into the general screen and just say they're inactive. When you do that, it could potentially create problems. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it could potentially create problems if you're using benefits and things like that, timekeeping, those types of things. Just changing them to inactive is not the best. Instead, what you want to do is you want to use the terminate button up here. So come to your general screen and go to terminate. This will ask you for their termination date. It'll ask you for their termination reason. This can be customized, so you can put anything you want in here. We can come in there and put that in there. You can mark if they're eligible for rehire. So if you want to keep that in there. If there are time off requests in the system, you probably want to delete all the future absences. On the right-hand side, if they're using benefits, those will show up here because obviously you're going to want to make sure that you terminate those benefits with the carrier. That's really important. Some people like to inactivate all their direct deposit accounts. That's not required, but it's an option. And then there's, again, you can do all the pending benefits here. So if someone had completed an open enrollment in the system, they would be able to come in and remove those benefits. There's also a termination report, which I'll just show you in just a second. If you click this report button, it's loading. So let's see if it loads up here. So this shows you an overview of everything that they have. This is a really nice report to run when you terminate someone. If you're using the company assets section, this is where you would do things like if you give them company keys, cell phones, laptops, whatever. If you've given them company property that you need to get back, those will be listed here. More on that will come in the HR training later this year as well on how to manage those types of things. If they had specific earnings or deductions that you may want to pay out as part of their last payroll, you can come in here and see what those are. If you needed to know what their leave accruals were, their PTO that was in the system, and you wanted to pay out their PTO, all of that shows up on this termination report. So it's a really nice report when you're getting ready to terminate someone to come pull this so that you can finish out their employment with you successfully. Coming back over here, most of the time, you're just going to have to fill out this top stuff. Again, 95% of our clients just filling this top out, put a termination date, reason, are they or are they not eligible for rehire, and then you hit save. That terminates them. That puts in that employment status history exactly what, when they left, when they started, and so forth. If you need to, you can come back here. You look them up when I come back here, this just shows me my active employees now. You'll see that John Johnson is no longer on my list. If I come over here and I change my filter and I want to show terminated employees as well, there's John again. Now I can come here and I can hit rehire. And again, this helps track things. So here we want to know their rehire date. He's coming back on April 2nd. If you want to run them through rehire, a new hire onboarding, you can use that too. I'm not going to do that because we don't have it set up here, but you can put those in here and we can hit save. Now they're activated again. And of course we got it. They're activated again. They can get logged in. It's always when you're doing demos, trainings, when we get the errors. Oops. So while we're on this employee list, these lists have been updated. Now you can customize these screens. So the filtering is really easy in here. If you want, again, you can see filter, terminated, active, so forth. If you wanted to search by a last name, I don't know if there's anybody in here, you can search by a last name for each of these columns. You can also you can export this list here. So click on the top right, there's a little Excel icon, you can export them all. You can also customize these fields. So if you don't want benefit class in there, you want to take that out, just drag it in. If you want to know, for whatever reason, their workers' comp code, you want that in the list, you just drag that on here. So these employee lists, again, across the system, can now be customized to match whatever your needs are. So that's terminating an employee. Again, it's pretty important to make sure you're using the terminate option, not just making them inactive. The terminate option really allows you to keep a good history of that, and it allows you to rehire them. And again, if you're using benefits, if you're using timekeeping, those types of things could get messed up if you don't use terminate and rehire correctly. The last thing I want to show you today is employee self-service setup and employee self-service troubleshooting. So to set somebody up for employee self-service, for them to get their pay stubs, you can just enter their email in here. So again, I'm just going to use my dummy account here and click enable self-service. Again, because I already have an account with this, it's going to tell me, hey, you already have an account, and it's going to link that. If they did not have another account linked to this, it would send them an email. They'll get that email. They have to go in, set up their account with a password and so forth. When the account is set up, they'll be able to log in and get their information. You just click that box and hit save, and they'll be set up. That's as easy as it is to set them up. 99% of the time, you're going to do that when you're going through quick hire. But if you need to do it after the fact, you can do that as well. The spinny wheel, it's got the little sleepy this afternoon, I think. The next thing, as far as troubleshooting goes, we have what's called self-service management. These menus can get pretty complicated, so sometimes it's nice to search the menu. So if I just start typing self-service, the first thing comes up, I have self-service management here. This tells me it's under employee admin tools, employee administration, self-service admin. So now we're in this different menu, we're here. This allows you to quickly go through and see who may be having issues with their self-service account. So you can see there's a total employees that have not been enabled. You can click and view the list here if you wanted to. See all the employees without an email. That's the biggest problem, right? You can see the employees with a self-service email. However, access is not enabled. That's 2 people. You can see that list. You can see if anybody's enabled but not yet authorized. If anybody's locked out, you can see that, and you can see the total active accounts. So to affect change here, we're going to go across the top, and we want to enable access. What we can do is we can come in here and just check, and if anybody has an email, click at the checkbox and hit process in the top right corner. That will resend everybody their activation emails. Really quick and easy to do it on a mass scale than doing it one at a time. If there are inactive accounts here, so if somebody, the activation email is only good for 72 hours. So if someone does not activate their account within 72 hours, you need to resend it. Come to inactive accounts, they'll be listed here. Same idea, check the box and hit process. That will resend them the account, the account setup information. Then if you go to locked accounts, you can see if somebody's locked out, same thing, check the box, hit process. And if you need to resend any specific emails, you can search to see what was sent and resend those emails. This happens a lot if emails are caught in spam filters and so forth, that you may need to come back in here and view those emails to resend them. So that's about everything I wanted to go through today for for Employee Management 101. I'm happy to take questions. Feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A, or raise your hand. I think I have a raised hand. Abdi, I'm going to cue you in here. Feel free to ask away. Unmute yourself and nope, no Abdi. Okay. All righty. I'll give you just a minute. If you have questions, again, feel free to put them in the chat or, oh, okay. What is inactive used for? There's Abby, you got his question in the chat. Inactive can be used, we use this during COVID. So for example, when we inactivated employees just temporarily, their employment never ended. We use that again during COVID just to make them inactive. Basically, it got them out of the payroll list so that they wouldn't have to worry about seeing those and accidentally paying someone during COVID. That's the most common use, I would say, for using inactive. That would be that. So any other questions? Or next month, April 20th, 2 o'clock, we're doing the basics of payroll processing. That'll show you how to do how to get in there, how to set up your time entry system, how to create, how to use the time entry grid, how to use individual time entry, and so forth. How to use imports, there are imports, and then how to preview and process your payroll. That'll be next month. That should be a good one as well. So, Sherry, yes, I am recording this. I think I hit record, and I'm going to post this on our YouTube channel, and it's going to go on our blog as well. So if you just go to papertrailspayroll.com/blog, you can grab that. I probably won't get up there till tomorrow, but you'll see that posted there hopefully tomorrow. So. Well, great. Well, I thank you all very much for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to payroll processors. They're excellent resources. They do this every day. Things are good, and we're happy to help, and we appreciate you joining us today. So thanks very much and have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you all soon.